Nous allons maintenant accueillir
We are now going to welcome Rabah SELLAMI, who is the Hydrogen and Alternative Energies Director at the Commission for Renewable Energies and Energy Efficiency in Algeria.
Merci beaucoup. Bonjour, je me présente.
Hello, let me introduce myself, Mr. Rabah SELLAMI. I'm an engineer and director of hydrogen and alternative energies at the Algerian Commissariat for Renewable Energy and Energy Efficiency, a national institute to support the energy transition and the assessment of energy in relation to this energy transition. I also track the energy transition and advise public decision makers. Today, I'm happy to present the challenges of the energy transition in Algeria and the role of clean and renewable hydrogen as an accelerator for this energy transition. And I will start by presenting the current energy systems, mainly based on natural gas and oil. That is the energy mix that mainly relies on fossil fuels. At the moment, the share of renewable energies is under 1%. Regarding energy demand, a significant share of consumption comes from the residential industry, which is not a productive industry, and also transportation, which accounts for a very big part of energy consumption. And road transportation, which is the largest share in terms of consumption. Regarding the trends in energy consumption at local level, and more specifically in natural gas, the electricity produced in Algeria comes from natural gas at 96%. Over the past few years, we have observed a very significant growth of national consumption of natural gas in comparison with the exported volumes. Only for 2022, 52% of the natural gas produced was consumed locally due to the dependence of electricity production from natural gas at 96%. The electricity penetration rate is very high, up to 99%, and the natural gas household penetration rate is very high as well, around 70%. Today, Algeria considers that this evolution of local consumption is very worrying. We have identified the urgency to act and to modify the energy mix by accelerating the energy transition towards a much more balanced energy mix, mainly based on the development of renewable energy and hydrogen, which was recently identified as one of the pillars of the energy transition. The objective of the energy transition is to ensure the energy security of the country, to preserve the natural resources of the country, and to respect the trade and climate commitments at international level. As I said, the energy transition lies on two pillars. First of all, developing energy efficiency, for example, thermal insulation of buildings, using double thickness glass, and the use of GPS in the transportation sector. The second pillar is the integration of renewable energy into the national energy system. In 2021, we announced a 15 gigawatt development plan for renewable energy, mainly based on PV energy, solar energy, by 2035. And out of these, 3 gigawatts are currently being developed. 3 were launched in 2023 and are currently being rolled out. In 2023, we introduced clean and renewable hydrogen as a part or new component of the energy transition for several reasons. First of all, to consolidate the role of renewable energies, to decarbonize certain industries which are considered a priority, and also to penetrate the green hydrogen market, leveraging the assets of Algeria and the recent trends at regional level. The introduction of this new component will require the increase of capacities in renewable, solar, and wind energies. Regarding the regional context to develop green hydrogen, it relates to the European one. There has been an announcement from the EU of a need for hydrogen by 2030, and part of this will be important from neighboring regions to the EU, and for the MENA region, it is one of the most interesting ones when it comes to availability of a high potential of renewable energy, including solar, and in terms of availability of land to build large renewable energy centers in order to get low-cost green hydrogen. Algeria is one of the countries with the biggest assets in the region. Algeria has a huge solar and wind potential. It also has a natural gas pipeline network that is extremely developed under the Mediterranean. Algeria has experience in the petrochemical industry, including production of ammonia, and Algeria has a strategic geographical position on the south bank of the Mediterranean. This is why this South Route Corridor project was developed in order to connect certain European countries to Algeria in order to develop green hydrogen transportation from Algeria and Tunisia to European countries. Based on this, Algeria started working on a strategy to develop the hydrogen sector. In 2022, a hydrogen committee was created at the start of 2022 with the most significant stakeholders. This group has released a strategic paper in December 2022, which was approved by the Ministry's Council. In 2023, the national strategy for green and renewable hydrogen was presented, and in early 2024, the document was published on the website of the Energy Ministry. Out of the strategic objectives in the strategy, the first one is to diversify the energy mix in Algeria, to set up an ecosystem favoring the development of clean hydrogen, and allowing Algeria to become a production and export hub for hydrogen. Creation of a national economy based on hydrogen and its derivatives, and also mastering the hydrogen technology throughout its value chain, which includes, of course, the reduction of national consumption of fossil fuels.
Comme objectif en matière de capacité de développement de l'hydrogène
Regarding
renouvelable, nous avons
capacity of development for clean and renewable energy, the objective is to achieve 40 terawatt-hours by 2040, mainly to export to the European market, and 10 terawatt-hour of green energy or blue hydrogen, because we also have the resources for this, to develop the usage of hydrogen at local level. That's around 300,000 tons per year. The objective is to decarbonize certain priority sectors who already use gray hydrogen at the moment, including ammonia and methanol production, and more generally, the petrochemical industry. In order to develop the hydrogen sector, we have identified three main phases. The first phase, by 2030, is what we call the launch phase for the hydrogen sector. We'll work on the regulatory framework, on developing capacities, human resources, research and development. And we are also going to launch pilot projects to test the technology and develop human resources and research and development activities. During the second phase, which will be a large-scale rollout of hydrogen capacities from 2030 to 2040, a progressive launch of large capacity projects throughout the value chain of hydrogen, mainly production of green hydrogen and blue hydrogen. The point is also to progressively replace gray hydrogen, which is currently being used by the local industry, and to replace it by clean hydrogen in order to decarbonize those so-called priority industries. Starting in 2040, we'll work on extending and increasing our green hydrogen production capacities in order to be able to export hydrogen. This will also depend on the evolution of the international hydrogen market. Here is an example of our roadmap. We started working on different important aspects, including developing the regulatory and standard framework, institutional framework, but also to develop human resources. We are currently working on preparing trainings and to adapt curriculums to the needs of the sector, launching specialized trainings and also research programs around hydrogen activities and throughout its value chain. Regarding industrial integration, we haven't started this work yet. However, regarding international cooperation, we have several ongoing activities. We want Algeria to be part of strategic alliances, and we're also strengthening bilateral and multilateral cooperation at the same time. Regarding pilot projects and the rollout of the hydrogen sector, we are launching pilot projects throughout the value chain. We'll talk about this in a moment. I apologize because there's been a mistake on the second point. This is about development of human capacities and not regulatory framework. These are actions that are already ongoing. Regarding the regulatory framework, we have launched a study on the regulation about the entire value chain of hydrogen, as well as on certifications as part of the cooperation program. Regarding human capacity development, just for the 23-24 university year, we have created new university for training programs around hydrogen, renewable energy, cleaning, and hydrogen. We have 3 pilot projects that are being launched in Arzu, in the West Algeria, and Hassim Saoud in order to test the technology throughout the value chain of hydrogen. We have 2 projects that are currently being developed by Sonatrach in the Hassim Saoud region. The first one is for 2 to 4 megawatt of electrolyzer and 4 to 8 megawatt for hybrid power plant. The largest pilot project is the one that is being developed in Arzu around the petrochemical plant to produce ammonia. A 50 megawatt electrolyzer will be implemented with renewable energy based on solar at 70% and on wind at 30%. We are in the decision-making process for investment. The main challenges in this work include mastering the cost of renewable electricity. We need a massive rollout of renewable energy in order to master the cost, mastering the technology and the industrial integration of equipments and components. The point, once again, is to master the final cost of green hydrogen production and adapting existing infrastructure or building new infrastructures, including the pipelines, as they will be useful to export this molecule. And, of course, preparing qualified human resources in order to lead this transition to hydrogen. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup pour cet éclairage.
Thank you very much for shedding the light on hydrogen in Algeria, and thank you as well for all the questions. I have a few for you, and I'll start with a question around green hydrogen in Algeria. Is it mainly for export, for local consumption? And if export, why mainly the European market, and why not opening to other territories? Thank you for the question. It's very interesting. As I presented it, the strategy revolves around hydrogen export, but also around local usage of part of the hydrogen. Because we must also decarbonize certain industries that have a lot of carbon emissions, including ammonia production, that already uses gray hydrogen at the moment. And also petrochemical industry, which also consumes large quantities of gray hydrogen. Why are we targeting the European market? Simply because the cost of hydrogen also depends on the distance. There are also other technology challenges to transport hydrogen. So short distance transportation is more interesting because there's not a lot of leakage and it's easier to master the transportation chain for short distances. But in the future, with the evolution of the technology, which will probably come, liquefied hydrogen transportation will increase as well, which will help us focus on other markets as well. But at the moment, the most interesting option for a country like Algeria, that already has a very developed pipeline infrastructure, is to export towards one market. Which is becoming more mature. This is the market that is developing very fast in comparison with other markets. Okay. We also have a second question. To date, are there knowledge transfer programs from Algeria to other countries in Africa and the sub-Saharan African countries? At the moment, we're getting into the hydrogen sector. In Algeria, it's a very new experience. We started working on this in 2023, as you saw. And for now, we are working with European partners mainly when it comes to cooperation with Germany and Italy mainly. But I do believe that in the future there will be other projects with the African region, and it will certainly come. Okay, so cooperation, experience programs with other Africans are happening or planned? I think it's more planned than happening. It is necessary to work with African countries, and actually there is a project that is currently being assessed to build a pipeline linking Nigeria to Algeria and towards Europe. And I think that there will be a lot of partnerships around this pipeline. Talking about pipelines, will it be exclusively transported through the pipelines? And what are the strategies implemented to adapt this network to transporting hydrogen? Well, if you look at the general trends in terms of fast transportation of hydrogen from one side to the other one, I believe the most mature solution is to use ammonia to carry hydrogen first. And then, between 2030 and 35, pipeline infrastructure will be adapted to transport gas hydrogen and, after this, liquefied hydrogen for larger distances. Another question now on carbon capture and storage. Is that a solution that is being considered to decarbonize the electric system? Carbon storage. Is that also a solution you're considering? Yes. And actually, I mentioned the option of producing blue hydrogen for local usage, and carbon storage is crucial in order to be able to produce blue hydrogen. But there's also an option to use storage in order to decarbonize certain industries, including cement, which is very developed in Algeria. And in the near future, this industry will have to face the CDM, the carbon adjustment mechanism. So at local level, we are already thinking about how we can decarbonize this industry. And there are also other industries that are currently developing and have significant exports capacities, so we need to work on decarbonizing those industries as well. Thank you. I'm going to ask a last question, maybe to clarify things for those who are not so used to hydrogen. You talked about green hydrogen, gray, blue hydrogen. Could you briefly explain the main differences? The main difference between the two colors, or the most well-known colors, is green and blue. Blue hydrogen comes from gray hydrogen. Gray hydrogen is produced from steaming natural gas. So we're breaking the molecule of natural gas in order to extract the hydrogen molecule, which leads to a lot of CO2 emission, because CH4, you take hydrogen out and you get CO2 remaining, which goes into the atmosphere, and that's the highest carbon rate. In order to avoid this, we need to capture the CO2, and gray hydrogen becomes blue hydrogen. However, green hydrogen is almost clean, almost 100% clean, and we use electrolyze in order to dissociate the hydrogen molecule, the hydrogen atom, from water. We use electricity in order to break this molecule, and that's how we get hydrogen on the one side and oxygen on the other. But the most important part is to use clean energy, either solar, wind, etc. Thank you so much for those clarifications, and we can now continue the discussions during the break. We have received a lot of questions as well, so you'll get a chance to use this break in order to continue your discussions. Thanks again.